I didn't get to vote for it. I certainly expressed my opinion, but I think the council, the majority, some felt there should be 40, some felt there should be 10. I think one probably felt there should be none, and 25 was the compromise, for which there was 5 votes. In Lansing, it was a 5-3 vote on the council.
So I wouldn't ask you to speak for anyone else, but I would assume that that would mean the people of Lansing wanted less. That's what led council to consider a smaller number, and you're saying 25 was a compromise because residents thought there were too many when the number was set at 80. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement that some members of the public felt 80 was too many. There's no question about that. The question that's hard to answer is, you know, what did, you know, if you did put a plebiscite, you know, how much was enough? And, you know, some people, for some folks, if it was near their home at all, if they drove by one, that was too close. I remember one popped up on Mount Hope in a shopping strip close to my house that I would see on my way home. And some people were upset about that. They weren't upset when they were in other parts of the city, down in Pennsylvania and Cedar and Michigan. But when one popped up on Mount Hope in an old doctor's office, and it was very nicely done. It's not like they put up a big cannabis leaf or anything. It just slightly changed, and that really offended some people. So, you know, there are still issues out there. I think there's still some stigma that I think in time will go away. I just share this one thing. At one of our hearings, a lady got up and said, she said, I go for a walk with my grandson, and she said, he sees this cannabis and this marijuana, and you know, sometimes we smell skunk, and she used this term skunk, and you know, what am I supposed to say to my grandson? She said, rather angrily to me. And I said, well, do you watch TV with your grandson? She said, yeah. I said, well, I'm curious to know, what do you say when one commercial after another talks about take a pill? If you can't sleep, take a pill. If you have indigestion after eating, take a pill. If you can't perform in bed, take a pill. And by the way, the side effects will kill you. In almost every case, it could kill you. If you're depressed, take a pill, but the side effect is the medicine might create suicidal thoughts. What do you say to him about all that? And she kind of got angry and said, I'm not asking about that. But it's a political process and political decision.
Doesn't it go with population? You said in Lansing is 100,000?
120,000 residents.
Okay, so it does not go with population?
That's one way. That's one way
okay.
you could look at. I mean, I looked at it, when How 80 cropped up, I just felt the free market, even though I'm a Democrat, like I say, I'm a pro-business Democrat, I just felt the free market, you know, just like pharmacies. Like, I don't say how many pharmacies. We don't limit Rite Aid. When Rite Aid was in that big fight with CVS, and they were putting them up almost on every corner, we didn't pass an ordinance saying you can only have so many pharmacies. So I just felt, why would we pass an ordinance? And since there was no problem with crime and whatnot, I just didn't see the need to limit it. That was just me. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if you could, thank you very much for coming out and sharing your wisdom. And for the record, I voted for you for governor, so yeah, I appreciate you coming out here.
Yes.
This group of elected officials, we've always tried to approach things very open-minded. We certainly don't always agree on everything. As a matter of fact, there's many things we don't agree on, but we try to debate them and debate these professionally. We look at them from a very realistic perspective. So my question to you is, you've talked about a lot of the positives, and I am going to put you on the spot a little bit. Share a negative. Because in every decision, there's negatives that we should be concerned with, that we may not have that direct experience that maybe you can share, that's something you've learned from, that you can caution this group against or guard against.
In all honesty, and I know there will be those who just can't believe this, and will assume it's because I have clients who are paying me to try to expand. When I think as a mayor, you know, mayor to mayor, local official to local official, I just, as much as, believe me, I had the stigma. I have never used marijuana. My brother was what we call a pothead, you know, and he sold marijuana. It was a very negative feeling to me, the smell of marijuana. I left parties when there was marijuana. So I had a very negative, what I call an anti-cannabis animus. But I have to say, I worked hard to educate myself. I went to these shops. You know, we had one that had become a lounge. It It's not allowed, I guess, under the law. But at the time, on Cedar Street, there was one that was a lounge, and you could buy it and use it right there. And people were up in arms. And I said, I gotta go find out what this, what's going on. I gotta see what this is about. So I stopped in one Saturday night. I just stopped in unannounced. I walked in, I don't know what I expected. I had visions of, wild party or something. And I walked in, I came around the corner, I smelled smoke, and I walked around it, and there was 5 people around a table, and they were mostly smoking marijuana, and they looked up, and one of them said, "My God, it's the mayor!" And they were just so they were using this marijuana product, and I talked to them, and some were on their way back from treatment at Sparrow Hospital for cancer treatment, which the marijuana allows them to, it deals with the nausea, so that they can keep food down, and I've known people who've used it for that. And then they told me that, look, I've got a driver, some had drivers, so that and some were taking Uber. And I came back out, and my wife said, well, you know what? I said, they were just, using marijuana. I didn't see what the big problem was with the fact that, they're using it on the premises. Okay. I guess that's not allowed under state law, but, and of course, we didn't allow loitering. We were big on that. I mean, frankly, Mayor, I'm not trying, I saw crime. There was one shooting outside a marijuana place, and outside a dispensary. And we had some people that said, there you go, look, it's causing crime. So I asked the police chief, will you do a little study? And I'm sorry, I don't have it with me. I will send it to you all. And we heard this a little bit, crime. And, we had a rash of bank robberies. We had one credit union that kept getting knocked off, the same one. And I said, I find it hard to believe. I said, I'd like you to, Chief, take a good look at banks and liquor stores. We had some problems with liquor stores, with violence. I said, and cannabis. And compare liquor stores, banks, pharmacies, and dispensaries. He did. And he came back with a little 5-page analysis that showed the dispensaries were 30% less crime than banks and credit unions and pharmacies. So I can't, I guess the one negative I heard was that right now, for example, that they've taken up that you can't get warehouse space. Now, if you talk to real estate, commercial real estate people, they love it. But if you were looking for, I guess, some big outfit that was going to come in and needed existing warehouse space right now, you'd have a hard time with it because the cannabis growers are lapping it up. But somebody would have to come in and build new if they wanted. I honestly, I just can't find that much of a downside. The economy is booming. You're putting people to work that are relatively, perhaps, unemployable at this time, getting valuable work experience.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, if I may, one of the things that we've debated internally is the pressure it may add to the current level of staffing. Did you guys see any increase in staffing requirements to police or to monitor or govern the ordinance in Lansing? Or was there a status quo?
So again, I encourage anybody to double check with the police chief to see if anything's changed. But when I was there, we did absolutely no changes in staffing to the police department. And to my knowledge, it's added no strain. Where it does add, I think, is potentially on the regulatory, if you want to move quickly. I think the fire department that does fire inspections, the fire marshal could stand an extra assistant or two. The clerk's office, under our ordinance, the clerk is the one who deals with the applications, and I think that they had to add staff. Of course, I think they were charging $5,000 per application, 6 in Lansing, and I think you only get half back. So it was non-refundable, half of it. So when we had our initial rush of applicants, I think they collected like $400,000. And so they took some of that and I think hired some additional staff in the clerk's office. But to my knowledge, it didn't add anything in terms of police. No more than, because these were empty storefronts. And of course, empty storefronts, we all know empty buildings are a magnet for crime.